Again with the Orwell. He who says it best lasts the longest in the historical scheme of things. Eric Blair, a.k.a. George Orwell, prophet well before his time, a man who made the entire ideological journey from the extreme right to the extreme left and back to the extreme center. He saw the bullshit from both extremes and came to his own conclusions. One of his most famous quotes, freedom is the freedom to say that 2 plus 2 make 4. If that is granted, all else follows. Simple truths, simplest of truths. And it is only through extreme acts of intellectual gymnastics that we can make reasonable people abandon those simple, self-evident, obvious truths. But as we go over week after week here on the sermon, they have been exceedingly effective at making otherwise intelligent people, otherwise reasonable individuals, ignore, abandon simple, self-evident truths. Now, again, guys, this is the fundamental element of the West, the sovereignty of the individual, walking in light, walking in truth, advancing civilization, the Socratic method, the steady search for truth, hell, even the scientific method, not science, TM, but the scientific method. It is all a search for truth. And what do we know? Here's a quote, another quote that I'm very fond of, that you've heard me use 1,000,001 times before, from Aldous Huxley. Of course, of every intellectual, if he stays at it long and tenaciously enough, arrives at the obvious, the position from which the non-intellectual has never stirred. This being the case, I'm proud to be surrounded by a lot of non-intellectuals, guys that understand the value of physical labor, guys that actually know what a callus on their hands feels like. In any case, we don't do black pills here. They have been exceedingly effective in the propaganda, making us abandon our truth, but we are seeing signs of pushback. The signs of pushback are coming from unexpected sources, and it throws our weakness as Americans into starker contrast. Witness first, just a year ago, the Canadian truckers' strike. Now, these examples that I'm going to go over are not without consequences. The globalist interests, the power structure struck back hard, as one would expect, reasonably. But the Canadians stood tough. They stood against senseless lockdowns, senseless mask mandates, senseless demands from their supposed leaders, and they showed the world what the true spirit of rebellion and standing for self-evident truth looks like. Witness what's going on in Europe right now. That's right, boys and girls, all over Europe. Started off in the Netherlands, because that's where the globalists first put the push on. But now we have farmers all over Europe. In France, Clem, if you're watching, we're very proud of your people. In France, in Germany, all over the place. Tractors, by the way, in the event of a complete collapse, for us civilians, tractors count as light armor. Heavy armor would be construction equipment. We'll do a deep dive on Marvin Heemeyer later. In any case, what do these two organizations have in common? Beyond truth, there are material goods that need to be delivered in the West. There is a life to which we have become accustomed because of the civilization that we have created. And it depends now on truckers and farmers. Without them, the food doesn't get produced. Without them, the goods don't get to market. Without them, the entire country grinds to a halt. The intellectual class has nothing but disdain, disregard, and, if we are honest, a deep-seated hatred for these people. Again, because of their strength and necessity, throwing the ruling class's weakness and ineffectuality into starker contrast. The globalist interests simply will not tolerate such a thing. Now, it may be a bit of a leap, but the final push is being put on the West, and the push back is coming in Canada and Europe. What the hell happened to the United States, man? The United States needs the pushback more than any other force in the Western industrialized and civilized world. We need to find our spines, and we have hit the tipping point. We're not doing black pills here, but we need to take a look at how hard that final push is. Observe first the border, which they assure us is completely under control. Ignore the evidence of your own eyes and ears, another Orwell quote that we'll get to later. They tell us the border is completely under control while we look at situations like this. This is not incompetence. This is intent. This is demographic replacement. This is sowing the seeds of the undoing of the West from the inside out, the only way the West could be brought down. Many a greater man than me has illustrated that point in many a better way. And these forces, not speaking with regard to legitimate migrants, but in California and Arizona last month, there are more Chinese coming across those border crossings than there are Mexicans. In the last year that Darth Cheeto was in office, 3 people on the terror watch list crossed the southern border. In 2020, 3. 10 times that many crossed the border only last month. And those are just the ones we caught. The seeds are being sown. And if you are looking to institute a 5th column, not only do you have the border invasion, but these maggots, we remember them from 2020, and we will be seeing them again very, very soon. The ones who live under the grace and comfort that Western society and civilization has provided for them have been brainwashed by academia, another pillar in that 5th column, and took to the streets in rage, and they will be doing it again. Border invaders with 5th columnists on the inside, anti-fascists, so they are called. The ruling class is undermining us from within, and these useful idiots, rather than align in defense of the very society that provides them their comfortable lifestyle, tear down statues, set cities on fire, and as if that weren't bad enough, now, with the current crisis in the Middle East, remember, and guys, listen very closely to what I'm saying and what I'm not saying. Remember when Darth Cheeto was in office and we were constantly beaten over the head with how negative anti-Semitism was, and anyone who expressed anti-Semitic remarks was a de facto Nazi and should be deplatformed, if not gulagged or killed? Do you remember that? Yeah. Funny how that evaporates when the cause celeb is one that the left have embraced. These are demonstrators for Hamas. Let's say it. No, they're demonstrating for the Palestinians in Gaza. Who did the Palestinians in Gaza elect democratically to lead them? Is that not what we were told with regard to why we had to do what we did to the Germans? We had to decimate their entire society. The Russians were right to rape their women after the war. After all, they democratically elected Hitler, another quote-unquote anti-Semite. Funny how the worm has turned, isn't it? It would be funny if it weren't so pathetic. So between the Antifa 5th columnists and the border invasion and the people yanking down statues in the name of a dead fentanyl addict, they're now joining forces with these folks. Those are just the ones who are boots on the ground, true believers, knuckles up, ready to fight. But it's bad enough that the culture is eroding from within. This latest phenomenon, and by the way, I love this acronym, if you're not familiar with it, affluent white female liberal. Awfuls. Yes. The awfuls, affluent white female liberals. These are the kinds of women that will lament rape culture while signing off their support on bills for equity-based sentencing and bail reform, turning loose the guys that are doing most of the raping. They can't think past the end of their nose. They're a cultural detriment. But for them, they exist in a separate reality, one in which having a trans child is quite like hitting the lottery. Trans children, let's ponder that for a minute. We can get into the subtleties and the nuances of adolescence and post adolescence and young adults, but children, let's ponder that for a minute and let's be unequivocal. Trans children are like vegan cats. The subject is not the one making the decisions. We have all been confused once upon a time, but this lunacy has grown so completely out of hand that the awfuls tout it as a virtue, and it would be bad enough if it were not backed up by organizations as prominent as TED, who are basically just reciting. Anyone familiar with NAMBLA? We'll be touching on it later when we get into the Taibbi article. It's the same rhetoric with the same silliness. Now, this meme here is purely gratuitous, but I thought I'd throw it in. In this country, guns have more rights than trans people do. I can't cut the barrel off my gun. It's good for a little chuckle. It's lowbrow humor. I'm not trying to get anything out of it, really, but just to point out the simple, easily observable, and self-evident truth of the absurdity of it. Because literally, I cannot cut the barrel off my gun, not below 18 inches and not below 24 inches of overall length. That is a federal law. However, in better than half the states right now, you can cut the cock off a healthy 12-year-old boy, and in half of those states, they don't even require parental consent. We are through the looking glass. Crossed the Rubicon. Pick your cliche phrase. And people who can convince you to believe absurdities, what did Voltaire say? They can convince you to believe absurdities. They can convince you to commit atrocities. We witnessed a low-level version of that during the COVID epidemic. I would not take the mark of the beast even if it meant my life. Really? You wouldn't reject a jab even though it might have meant your job? And let's ponder this for a second. I'm not going to do a deep dive on AI here, but the way people exhibited servile, slavish devotion to so-called experts, what do you think they're going to do when it's computers making the decision as part of AI? Just a real quick thought. You might want to take another look at that Gemini program that Google rolled out and all of the implications thereof. So yes, if they can convince you to believe absurdities, they can convince you to believe atrocities, which brings me back to Orwell. In his masterpiece, 1984, and Ryan, I see you out there. I like Animal Farm better too. Just roll with it. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. This border is totally under control. This protest is mostly peaceful. They're not pulling down statues. These people don't represent Hamas. They represent the interest of the Palestinian people. It totally makes sense. And these people grooming your kids aren't really grooming your kids. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. Now, that's part of the quote. An important part, but not the entirety. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. His heart, Winston, the protagonist, sank as he thought of the enormous power arrayed against him. The ease with which any party intellectual would overthrow him in debate, the subtle arguments which he would not be able to understand, much less answer, and yet he was in the right. They were wrong, and he was right. A lot of us are out there with our hearts sinking. because we do think about the enormous power that are arrayed against us, the power of the propaganda ministry, the power of every cultural force, entertainment, academia, mainstream legacy media, the ease with which any power party intellectual would overthrow them. They can't intellectually overthrow us in a debate. They don't have the facts on their side, but what they do have is the ability to deplatform. What they do have is the ability to overwhelm the discourse and to make these arguments, these subtle arguments, quote unquote, through the lens of their intellectual gymnastics, which us deplorables, us great unwashed, who deal in self-evident truth, would not be able to understand, much less answer. We have answers for all of them, but we cannot push past the deplatforming power. Thank God for men like Elon Musk. Thank God for men like Dan Bongino and the founders at Rumble that keep these channels open for us. But here's the final, most salient part of the quote, and the one that we need to accord the most importance to. And yet he was in the right. They were wrong, and he was right. Look earlier in the quote. Winston's heart sank as he thought of the enormous power arrayed against him. If you've read the novel, you know exactly how it had already played out to that point in the book. I understand your heart's sinking when you look and think of the enormous powers which are arrayed against us. But remember, we are in the right. They are wrong, and we are right. This isn't a place for go along to get along, agree or disagree, because the very foundations of Western civilization and the intellectual process itself are at stake. So no matter how much your heart sinks, do not lose hope. Continue to stand in the face of this absurdity. Speak the truth that you know to be the truth without equivocation or apology, that we may avoid looking out at the smoldering ruins of a once great civilization and wondering how and when it all got away from us. It's starting right now. We are at a crossroads. Decide. The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else's on the planet. Not friends, not foes, not supporters, not detractors, not sponsors, and, even though I'm in between, certainly not employers. I cannot stress that enough for you docs happy monkeys on the left. It doesn't matter. Walk to any of my job sites and look at the Trump stickers. You haven't got a prayer. Report me, scumbags. They have been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions. Consider yourself warned. They are coming from the heart. They are guided by the mind. They are guaranteed to stretch open that cock holster and choke you with a big fat dose of turgid, swollen, thorny truth cock. Open wide, boys and girls. We are back. It's time once again for the Sunday sermon. Sometimes it just gets away from me, man. I don't know what to tell you. We're going to do a quick roll call here in a minute, see who all's on board right now. Everybody in for the drum roll, please. Coming hard, charging out of the starting gate. We are on the command center level of the Bart Bunker in scenic Spokane, Washington, the inland Northwest. The bumper music, as always, Red Desert, gut-stomping rock and roll band from the smoldering embers and ruins of the once great city of Minneapolis, Minnesota. In fact, that may be the city that we see on fire in this one here from the opener. I could be wrong about that. Don't hold me to it. In any case, happy to have you guys on board, man. Ran a little long with the opener. Sometimes it gets away from me. I had a point that I wanted to make, and that led to other points, and then I go off on a tangent, and here we are. In any case, Red Desert, the bumper music, man, they've been really cool letting me use that now. We are into our 4th year of the Sunday sermon. This started out as therapy, man. We're going to be getting into that in a little bit. But I'm happy for you guys to be here and to be on board. Good to see each and every one of you. The name of the band is Red Desert. Name of the track is Older, No Wiser. Every week I get a little bit older. Every week you guys get to decide if I have gotten any wiser. Some weeks I do better than others. The original Sinner Sister herself, Miss Emmy, is on board. And by the way, if you guys checked out my new Substack, It was a post that Emmy sent to me that inspired that Substack. She's about as big a fan as Robert E. Howard as I am of Howard Phillips Lovecraft, and it was a letter from Lovecraft to Howard, and it just got me spun up. And Substack came pouring out of my face. I need to learn how to touch type, man. I'm going to be 9 times as efficient. Here I am, 55 years old, still. I have a 3-finger hunting peg, not a 2-finger hunting peg, but it's sad, man, and it's inexcusable at this point. Brother Dennis Weimer, OG Reverend's Ranger on board. Brother Roman from Opium Tales, good to see you, brother. Bill Wade, man, hey, you guys enjoy yourselves this week, man. I'll tell you about it in a minute. I could not pull away. Going to be unable to join you folks, but you guys enjoy yourselves next week. In fact, Bill, I don't even know. I don't even know if you said you were going to be there. I know Shin's going to be there. I know Clem's going to be there. But anyway, man, you guys get some good work in, man. I miss every one of y'all, my brothers in Christ, my brothers in arms, my brothers. I love y'all, man. Brother Joey, man, the Sultan of Sarcasm. Good evening, fellow. Dude, no, you're too heavy to be Bushimi, dude. I'm sorry. I mean, and you're not nearly creepy enough to be Bushimi regardless. So, no, it's not going to work. So we got Bill. Who else have we got? Brother Clem. Clem, I hope you heard me give the nod to the Frenchmen in the opener because they are kicking ass and taking names over there, brother. It is amazing. The Europeans are pushing back. The Divine Miss Charlie. Hello, sweetheart. Nice of you to join us. Oh, man. Yeah, the Europeans are pushing back, and meanwhile, we're just sitting over here waiting for our balls to drop. It's sad. Carrie, I figured if Roman was here, you had to be hiding in the background somewhere. You are here. Good to see you. We got Ida. Oh, nice. Hey, so I'm assuming Deacon Mark is around here somewhere, and we're just going off of one account because we're all sitting on the porch. What a way to wrap up a weekend. Right on. Hey, Brother Mike Stone. You are in for a treat this week, brother. You are going to get so much out of this Fear Inoculum class. It is going to be outstanding for you. I'm glad you enjoyed the opener, man. Sometimes it works better that way when I just get on a tear. Brother Doug, good evening, brother. Ready to receive the message. I'm ready to deliver, man. Hopefully it doesn't disappoint. I'm a little disorganized this week, but we'll see, man. We'll see. I'll be there. Bill, you're not going to be there? Okay. All right. Well, that'll be 2 of us then. Maybe we'll establish something on the side, or we'll just do a conference call. We'll check in on Stone, and we'll see how rough Clem is treating him. I warn you, man, Stone. When you get into those systemic punches, right? There's levels, right? You got level 1, you got level 2. Don't go above 2 your first time out. I promise you, man. I had Clem hit me. I had a Richard Gere moment, man. I really did. Because, as much creepy, perverse stuff as I've done in my life, I've never gerbiled. You know what I mean? But now, that level 2 punch, I had some rough idea of what it would feel like to have a rodent, scrolling around in your guts for a second. Is that graphic? Did that make anybody uncomfortable? Good. Mission accomplished. Oh, man, pretty good mood today. We got a lot of stuff to cover. Again, Older No Wiser from the band Red Desert. Those guys are fantastic, man. Really good gut stomping rock and roll band, and they have been super cool in letting us use that music, man. Again, we're entering our 4th year here. Let me get the sponsor shout outs out of the way, and then we'll jump into it. First and foremost, Roman, I can't say enough good things about this guy. We go all the way back to 1988. He is one of my oldest and dearest friends. You guys got to meet him once. What do we got? We'll have to get Sonny to FaceTime from the draft house. Dude, I would love that. Maybe we'll just do a conference call, like you guys and Bill and me, and we'll put it together. You guys met Roman when he was doing the promo for his book. He was the first virtual guest that we had on the program to promote his book, from Dork to Pimp Daddy. And you can find that online at Amazon. Roman Riva is his nom de plume. Sorry, that's all the French I know, Clem, like legit. I mean, besides like some obscene words and stuff involving fisting, but we're not going to get into that. In any case, uh, that is his pen name, Roman Riva, and you can find From Dork to Pimp Daddy on Amazon. Dude, it's a fantastic book, and he's had a legit, really, really cool journey with this stuff because Roman, as long as I've known him, has always been a creative guy. You know, when we met, it was in a musical context back when my hand would still function to be able to fret a D chord, and now I've got coarse motor skills on a good day. In any case, uh, he got off into the watercolor thing and started painting. And before you knew it, man, through the course of his journey, he's got these gorgeous women like Roman, and he's got Allie and Roxy, and these other women whose names I can't even remember because he presents me pictures of them and I'm just stunned. Some of them with a condition that I refer to as whiplash ass. Now, what is whiplash ass? I'm so glad you asked. That's when the ass is just so bountiful that like you snap your head around real quick to get another look at it, and you throw your disc out of alignment. In any case, these beautiful naked women are paying him now for the privilege of painting them naked. It's an incredible thing. Uh, and Roman is just such a dude. I've met very few people in my life with that level of integrity, and he's been a very good friend and a devout supporter of the program as well. He was kicking me in the ass for years before I ever got into doing any of this stuff. Bro, you need to be online. Bro, you need to be doing a program. Bro, you need to do this. Bro, you're an effective speaker. And finally, I think he's just happy to see me actually pulling it off. But he's outstanding. Go check him out at opiumtales.com. Get the book, right? Get it from Amazon. Check him out at opiumtales.com. He's got this beautiful, they're the erotic pinups and portraits people. He's doing beautiful watercolor work, beautiful naked women, and testosterone driven commentary, which is a bonus. Right on. And of course, you got to eight. Yeah, that's what he said, man. We took it to a Dungeons and Dragons relatable example. 18 charisma. Yeah. 18 charisma, 18 constitution, 1847 strength, uh intelligence and wisdom. I don't know. Intelligence maybe not so much. Wisdom I'm gaining. I think I may actually be up into double digits on wisdom, and with strength, intelligence, dexterity 7. All right, let's just call that what it is. I can't even remember the attributes now. It's been so damn long. In any case, so Roman doing some great stuff From Dork to Pimp Daddy. Get the book over to Opium Tales. Check him out at opiumtales.com. Check out the commentary. Check out the blogs. It's good stuff. Follow him on all the different social media platforms, Twitter, everything. Also, little shout out to my Viking brothers, Casey and Dusty Tellison at Nordic Smoke Barbecue, the only legit barbecue in the Inland Northwest, period. End of statement. Done. I got a birthday coming up soon, and I could really, really, really use, yep, hamster gut 40. There you go. I could really, really use some Nordic Smoke in my life. So I think I'm going to see what I can do about putting that together, and maybe we can make that happen for the birthday. That's going to be cool. In any case, those guys are the only legit barbecue in the Inland Northwest. Not only that, Dusty is an amazing pitmaster, and the other Viking brother, Casey Tellison, also has a book out, Freaks of a Feather, from Latop Press out of Spokane, Washington. This book, I'm not telling tales out of school because he openly professes it now. This book started off as a suicide note. It is one of the most incredible journeys into somebody's inner landscape that has survived the horrors of combat that you will ever read in your life. And I'm not just saying that to puff his pecker because he's a good friend of mine. I was telling him he had a gift before he really got into writing. Just looking at some of his early essays and stuff, he's very, very gifted. This is the thing about art, and I know I'm off the barbecue topic, but bear with me. Any kind of art, whether it is music, whether it is visual arts, whether it is spoken word and the stuff that I do, all that art amounts to really is taking a vision that you have here in your inner landscape, right? Taking it out of your head and forming and shaping it together out here in the ether as something that some other person's mind can comprehend and get some tangential idea of how it looked or felt to you when you wrote it, right? Again, Elon's working on Neuralink, one of the things that one of the areas where I vehemently disagree with Elon because and on AI, because at least he's cautious about AI, but the Neuralink thing. Once Neuralink is up and running, we'll be able to look into each other's heads directly, and that's a pretty terrifying prospect. But in the meantime, because I think we're going to lose some of our humanity behind that, art is our ability to take this and put it out here in a way that somebody else can understand without plugging directly into our brain. You know, you look at Roman's musical work or his visual art. You look at Casey's writing, right? You look at some of the stuff that I write, either in my Substacks or my essays, or some of the spoken word that I deliver. I don't know if you guys, some of you guys knew this, but I was a spoken word performance artist back in the day. I actually toured with Lollapalooza in 1994. And got to perform all over the place, including just down the road at the Gorge Amphitheater. But I got to perform all up and down the West Coast on stages. We got to traumatize Billy Corgan of Smashing Pumpkins. It was a good time. Performed at Lollapalooza in Austin in '95. I was at the National Poetry Slams in '97. Did one of the showcase pieces that actually scared Dan Rather clean out of the building. It's a funny story. I'll share it with you one day. But in any case, being able to take what is here and putting it out here in a way that other people can, you will never directly have the full experience. But if I can just give you like a subtle walk on my inner landscape, and Casey really, really delivered with this. It's incredible. You know, I have never been in the throes of actual combat. I have been shot at and returned fire. Okay. That's not combat. You know, crime and combat are very, very different beasts. I cannot begin to get my head around what that's got to be like. But he was able to put this. The book is just brilliant. I can't even do it justice. I'm tearing up thinking about some of this stuff. He's a very gifted writer. So on top of that, his brother does a mean barbecue. But yeah, man, Casey and Dusty Tellison, my Viking brothers, and Casey now has graduated law school. He's passed the bar, and he's out there practicing attorney. So you know, guys, if you want to jack with me, just remember I got Casey on retainer, and remember he was a machine gunner. Okay, don't. No, and I'm looking at the dialogue between you guys. You guys did not cross paths. I don't think, okay, you guys didn't cross paths during that point, but Roman, you might remember him from Downtown Grounds. You may, because that was about the time, right. The statute of limitations has run out on that one, so we can talk about that one, Dennis. Xerox Fuser Oil, yes, for the record, did the job. I do. Oh man, so many stories. Roman, you might have met him at Downtown Grounds, because that was about the time you will probably remember a guy named Marco Landine. He is, he's still doing art and stuff. He's hard leftist and things like that. He ran into some bad luck, and I sent some money to him after he was assaulted at a public performance a couple of years ago. We will never speak again. But anyway, he was around. So if Roman, if you were around so if you remember Marco, chances are you probably ran into Dennis, because it was generally the three of us and Johnny around somewhere. So you may have crossed paths with him back in the day. I don't know, but it's good Lord, that's 30 plus years, man. Oh, I'm old. Anyway, guys, what do you say we jump into it? Guys, I have hijacked a rabbit hole this week. and it's right if you didn't cross paths with for lack of trying. I hijacked a rabbit hole this week because I want to delve deep, not really even deep. I want to Wendell. Oh, you're talking about Weldon, I think. Yeah, Weldon. Dude, he joined the military and went off and did a couple of tours in the sandbox, and he was already he was already batshit before he left, and when he came back, he was even further gone. If I had to guess what's up with Weldon right now, he's probably, I would say, probably in a penitentiary. I mean, it's just a guess, but I would say probably in a penitentiary. How bizarre did not. I'm sitting here for however long staring at the screen waiting for something to happen. I'm sorry to hear that, man. Yeah, what? So anyway, guys, I'm getting off track. I've hijacked because I just wanted to dip a toe into the pond. We're going to be getting into some things about this last push for the death of the West, and I want you guys to look up, because a lot of people, and you guys saw the post earlier this week, where everybody has got a spot in this. If you can't shoot, you can load. You can load magazines. If you can't load magazines, you can carry ammo to the front. If you can't move around that well, you can deal with logistics and handle communications. Everybody's got their place. And I got to thinking about that because a lot of people, in fact, a couple that are here, yeah, he was hell of a grappler. A couple of people that I know of that are watching this broadcast get really down on themselves because they are not as in good a shape as they once were, or they feel like once things do kick off, they're not going to have a lot of usable skills or anything to bring to the party. And I was crossing paths on this in the opener, and I was reminded of Sybil Luddington, and I'm going to spell her name for you. Sybil, Sybil, Luddington with one D. Luddington with one D, Sybil Luddington. She was 16 years old. You guys know who Paul Revere is, right? You guys know who Paul Revere is? Yes. You're familiar with the ride. To arms, the British are coming, one if by land, two if by sea. We all know the story. And if you don't know, you should know. That would be the first one that you need the first rabbit hole you need to go down is Paul Revere's ride. What kicked off the American Revolution? What was it? What was it that kicked off the first? We're not talking about the Boston Massacre and all of the Boston Tea Party and the Stamp Act and all the other, the casus belli, the number one trigger event. Okay. The British were dispatched to Lexington and Concord. Why did the farmers at Lexington Green decide to put up a fight? Why did they hold the line at Concord Bridge, knowing that the British were marching? Why did they hold the line? What were the British coming for? What were they coming for? Anybody? Somebody's going to jump in here because I know a lot of you know the answer. They had been dispatched from Britain with orders to collect all colonial armaments. Here's something you don't know, and this is a little poke into Joe Biden's bread oven because he's constantly saying, you can't just own any weapon. You can't own a cannon. That is not true, sir. When the Second Amendment was written, the majority of artillery pieces that were fielded by the colonial militias were privately owned. Little known fact. Most of the cannon on the front line from colonial militia, once the Continental Army was assembled, they started mass producing it for the Continental Army, but there was no standing federal type overarching government at the time. There wasn't. The artillery pieces were privately owned. The British had been sent to Lexington and Concord with orders to seize all colonial armaments, powder, shot, cast bullets, muskets, artillery. Take their weapons. It was a line in the sand then, and it remains a line in the sand for many of us, myself included now. Sybil Luddington. We didn't have radio back then. We didn't have radio. We didn't have internet. Smoke signals aren't going to work at night. But what we did have was a network of people with equestrian skills. People that knew how to ride horses. People with booming voices that could ride horses. And a network of communication. Correspondences were done by letter largely, and they were sealed, and they were delivered by messenger. It's old school thing. And this is something, by the way, just a little sidebar, something that I want to get back to is I would like to network with you guys and get your actual mailing addresses and start sending postcards. Because I've got this ridiculous collection of postcards. In fact, Just turn them right here. In front of these right here. I have this ridiculous collection of postcard books. And emails are great, and social media is great. But there's something about a tangible letter in somebody's handwriting where you can see their character expressed in that. I would love to establish a network like that. Total sidebar. In any case, messages were communicated. One if by land, two if by sea. Paul Revere and Sybil Ludington, as it turns out, in a completely separate event. Okay? Which way are the British coming? You look for the lanterns in the steeple of what? In the steeple of the church. Because the church was a vital part of the community back then. And the church was just as independently minded. You had some colonial preachers who were Tories, who were British loyalists. They didn't last long, and they didn't have the respect of their congregations. So anyway, you look to the steeple, and someone would hold up lanterns. One if by land, two if by sea. So if the British are coming and they hold up one lantern, if you look up in that steeple at the appointed time, which was established through a letter a week earlier, you see one lantern. You look at that time, you see one lantern. Right? They're coming by land. You jump on your horse and you ride through from village to village to village. To arms! To arms! The British are coming! The British are coming! Sybil Ludington made a ride over twice as far as Paul Revere's. 40 miles. 40 miles in a driving rain at night through wooded territory, through villages that were known to have British loyalists within them. And because people who were British loyalists still thought of the colonists as treasonous, or what's the word I keep hearing now? Starts with an I. Somebody help me out. Insurrectionists. She was running the risk of being shot right off the back of that horse by British loyalists. Or her identity being established and being turned in to British authorities in the region. She was a girl and she was 16 years old. She alerted every village along a stretch exceeding 40 miles at night through a driving rain. George Washington delivered his thanks to this teenage girl in person. I say all that to say this, and you can do the deep dive. Sybil Ludington, now that you've got the search term, you can do the deep dive on who she was, what her childhood was like, why her patriotism was so fierce. You'll learn all of that. I say all that to say this, to come back to the point that I wanted to address earlier in the week when I made the point about everyone has a place in this. Everyone has a place in this. You know, for my brothers in Christ, and this is something that Bill Wade and I have talked about at length, it's not always going to be how everybody thinks it's going to be in this battle to come. Even if you're purely secular, let's take the carpenter out of the equation for a minute. Let's say that you're basing it just on patriotism. Everybody likes to think that they will go out in a hail of bullets, waving the flag and screaming Molon Labe and but you know, sometimes we don't get that luxury. Sometimes that glorious death that all us swinging dick gunfighter types fantasize about is not the way. It's not the way. Some of us get shot through the shoulder trying to run back into our own cabin in North Idaho and have to live the rest of our life with what it looks like to see our wife shot dead while breastfeeding a 6-month-old infant. How glorious was that? Probably not the glory that, may he rest in peace, probably not the glory that he had in mind, nor Kevin, for that matter. Sometimes, for the sake of our beliefs, and this brings the carpenter back into the equation a little bit, sometimes for the sake of our belief, we are in a building getting gassed and then burned alive. That hero's death, that warrior's death, is not going to be the fate for all of us. For my brothers in Christ that like to think that we're going to be, swinging swords and standing in the face of the minions of the Antichrist, we should all be so fortunate. But for many of us, as prophesied in the scripture, there's very little glory in standing with cameras on you and the name of Christ being the last word that crosses your lips before they cut your throat. It's not a glorious death. It's heroic. It's not glorious, is it? But if you truly believe, whether it's in the carpenter or whether it's in your nation or whether it's both, as Sybil Ludington did, the glory of it isn't what drives you. Your sense of duty is what drives you. This is what you were put on this earth to do. And if you die this way, so be it. No fear, no regrets, no equivocation. So before we get so caught up in all this gloriousness, before we, start sounding like a bunch of boogaloo boys with their Hawaiian shirts and their stupidity. Yeah, man, I'm going to be on the front lines, man, taking bullets. Shut up, man. Not everybody would even be built for that. But we need you anyway. If you can't shoot, you can load. If you can't load, you can bring ammo. You can run around with bottles of water, handing them out. But in the meantime, between time, you can speak. You feel me? Are you tracking here? You can speak. Use that voice, man. Use the voice that God gave you to speak the truth. You hear me say a lot, and I stand by it. Don't engage. When people, give you the pushback, when people give you the ridicule, there's no point in engaging with these people. The ones that remain silent, there is a possibility that they can still be reached. If they jump in your face immediately, oh yeah, another Jesus joke, and I've been that guy, by the way. I've been that guy. You couldn't have reached me then. There would have been no point. But speak. Unequivocally, but more to the point, unapologetically. Don't be an asshole about it. There's no need to be an asshole about it. Let your life, beyond what you speak, how you carry yourself, let your life be the example. We all fail. I fall short constantly, and I'm trying to be more and more aware of checking myself. This is, when I think of the example, what I think of is this. Someone who is completely uninitiated, if they could look at me and go, oh, wow, is that what being a Christian is? Yeah, man, I could get behind that. And you guys know better than I do that I don't always do that. I give in to anger. I give in to bitterness. I spew when I need to stay silent. Oh, Brett, I'm glad to see you, brother. I'm glad you made it out. I spew when I need to stay silent. But one thing I will never do is stay silent when I need to speak. Okay. If that is a fault, I'll own it, because I would rather be the guy. I would rather be the guy that says too much than the guy that remains silent when something needs to be said. There's a spot for all of us in the struggle to come. Remember Sybil Ludington. Think about the contributions that you can make. Think about the message that you want to deliver. Think about the example that you want to put out in the world, and then go out and live it. That is that. It's actually a pretty decent segue to the next bullet point that I wanted to hit about staying silent when something needs to be said. You remember the opener? We went over that. They don't even have to get you to believe the absurdities that they're spewing. They just need to get you to shut up. They just need to demoralize you. They just need to dehumanize you to the point where you don't even want to speak anymore because you feel like it's simply not worth it. Let's go back to that. What is it? You remember Winston at the end. His heart sank as he thought of the enormous power arrayed against him, the ease with which any party intellectual would overthrow him in debate, subtle arguments which he would not be able to understand, much less answer, and yet he was in the right. Well, being in the right was cold comfort because he felt like it didn't matter. That's what the party, for lack of a better word, does. That's what the regime does. That's what the power structure does. That's what they count on. So yes, I would much rather be a person that speaks too much than a person who remains silent when something needs to be said. Taibbi, Matt Taibbi. I can't say enough good things about this. Guys, sound off in the comments if you are subscribed to my Substack. Okay? Oh, that's clever, Joey. That's clever. You've been doing bong hits with Aaron and you're getting all paranoid. Sound off if you guys are subscribed to my Substack. Substack is one of the last platforms for actual journalists and actual writers who don't want to be run through the woke filter, for lack of a better word. You guys know, or you should have seen if you're following my Substack, I recommend things. And by the way, Megan Miller-Puzikis, Sonny's adorable wife, who is an incredibly gifted writer, is now on Substack. I posted a link to hers. She's going to be putting out some really good material. You should subscribe. Writers who I admire, writers who I respect, writers who I may even disagree with, as in the case of Glenn Greenwald. I disagree with him on any number of things, but he's a skilled writer and he speaks the truth, the unvarnished truth as he understands it. I'll never run away from that. If you are subscribed, you should have seen Matt Taibbi come across your feed at some point, because just like you can retweet on Twitter, you can restack on Substack. If I see and I'm reading someone's article and I'm like, wow, that is a great article, I can post it on my other social media platforms, but I can just restack it. So if you're subscribed to me on Substack and I happen to see something from a writer that I dig, I restack it. You guys can check it out. Taibbi's phenomenal. And I have to thank a dear friend of mine, someone that Roman knows it. Roman knows Scott Tennant from back in the day. Tragically, Judy passed last year. Judy passed last year of cancer. She was my favorite leftist, one of the brightest spirits I've ever met in my life. Scotty, who's been one of my favorite intellectual sparring partners since I was drinking underage at Mira Peretti's in the late 80s. He turned me on to Matt Taibbi. I was not sold on Taibbi at first because Taibbi was pretty hard left and he was writing for Rolling Stone. And I just, I could get behind some of the stuff that he was doing, but I just wasn't really sold on him. And I don't know what point he had his red pill moment, but he and Greenwald both about the same time. And he's that rarest of specimens, a leftist who has not completely lost his mind, a true liberal, um, in the deepest sense of the word, in the sense of classical liberal ideology, of individual liberty, of, the antithesis of what has become the woke left. In any case, Taibbi, you guys know, most weeks, just about every week, I do Reverend Bart's Read of the Week, and you guys will note that Taibbi is inordinately represented there because he's consistently the guy that hits it out of the park, and he did it again this week. Uh, Racket News is his Substack, the dumbest cover story ever. It's about an article that appeared in the New Yorker, or New York Magazine rather, called Freedom of Sex. It's posted, not just restacked on my Substack, but it's also posted to the fan page. You can go and you can read his entire write-up on it. It's absolutely phenomenal. But what it comes down to is it's a defense by a woman named Andrea Long Chu. It is a defense of children being able to be surgically mutilated. Let's just call that what it is. We could call it gender affirming care. We could call it, reinforcing their, assertion of this, that, the other thing. No, we're talking about cutting the sex organs off of children. Okay. You can feel about that however you want to emotionally. I will fight you with every last breath in my body, physically, at risk to great injury to myself or the other party. Children. You want to talk about somebody doing that over the age of 18? You even want to talk about that gray area where they start using the hormones at 16 and don't really complete their physical transition till 18. That is a discussion that I'm willing to have. We're talking about children. She is talking about children. Are you guys familiar with an organization called NAMBLA? NAMBLA is an acronym for the North American Man-Boy Love Association. Okay. This is an organization that has been around since at least the 60s and basically refers to other cultures. Again, that cultural relativism that is so prominent on the left. All cultures are basically the same. We can't judge based on our moral values and everything. But basically, the long and the short of it is they look at other cultures where man-boy sex is allowed. Places like Afghanistan, places like Sub-Saharan Africa, where pederasty is basically an embraced social norm, where the older men bugger the little boys, where the little boys blow the older men. And the North American part of it, in NAMBLA, wanted to bring those brilliant cultural values and all that cultural enrichment to North America, to the US and Canada. And the fact that every single member of this organization hasn't been drug out by their face and beaten into hospitalization continues to baffle me. Because there's some stuff that there's no room for. There's some stuff. And let me be abundantly clear, in keeping with my small L libertarian leanings, I didn't say by agents of the government. When they're talking about the cultural enrichment, when they are spewing from their little pedophile maw the idea of why it should be okay for them to put their pee-pee in little 6-year-old Bobby, that is speech. Okay? I am an absolutist about speech. Oh my God, you really want to? Yes, I do. I want them to be able to say it, and I want them to be able to say it publicly, because that way we know who they are. Y'all tracking? I would never approve of the government banning one of their pamphlets, because that's a power that the government can't be trusted with. I want them to put out their literature. I want them to speak their minds, because that way the rest of us know who they are. Again, The fact that every single member hasn't been tracked down by concerned neighbors, drug out by their face, and summarily and unceremoniously curb stomped is just baffling to me. But they released a pamphlet in 2008. Now, I am going to read for you, and this is in the article, and you can go back and revisit this. I'm just going to do a couple of them here. But they released an essay in 2008 called A Call for Social Justice. You guys know how much I love that social justice thing as a term, don't you? This is why. Because once you have gone down that socialist road, once you start talking about equality and equity and relativism and cultural relativism and moral relativism and all of these other things, there's literally no end to it. Okay? 2008, their essay was called A Call for Social Justice. And then this week, Andrea Long Chu published her piece, Freedom of Sex, about the trans kid phenomenon. Okay. I'm going to read a couple of quotes, and I'm going to get you to guess which one is from the New Yorker last week and which one is from NAMBLA, the North American, let me repeat it, Man-Boy Love Association. Just going to read them out for you. Quote A, we have a responsibility because of our relative freedom of action to the ideal we espouse of complete liberation for children. Quote B, for now, parents must learn to treat their kids as what they are, human beings capable of freedom. B was from the New Yorker. Now, you may say those two aren't the same thing. You're stretching, Bart. Okay, let's go a little better for one number 2 here. Quote A, legally, children are not owned by their parents, but nonetheless are completely subject to their parents' domination and consequently have the status of slaves. Quote B, Americans tend to imagine children both as a font of pure, unadulterated humanity and as ignorant dependents incapable of rational thought or political agency. That's basically the same quote. Which was which? B was from New Yorker. And I'm going to do one more. There are plenty more. From an acceptance of the concept of children's liberation, it is not a large step to the acceptance of the idea of a general social liberation for all people. When special cases of discrimination against children are examined, the specialness of the examples diminishes. That's quote A. Here's quote B. For these people, sex itself is becoming a site of freedom. This freedom is not unprecedented. What is new is the idea that this freedom can be asserted as a universal right by a group as politically disenfranchised as children. You guys starting to get the hang of it? I want you to go and read. I did post the article. Taibbi hits it out of the park. A lot of people would say that is an unfair comparison. It is not. It is far from an unfair comparison. It is an apples to apples comparison in the nature of the argument. Here's the difference. If I were reading those statements to you and I told you it was from a pamphlet from the North American Man-Boy Love Association, your eyes would immediately glaze over and you would accuse me of pedophile leanings simply for reading it to you. Why the hell are you even, why do you even know about a group named NAMBLA? Why are you so familiar with their philosophy? And what kind of twisted nonsense is this about giving children sexual and political agency? Are you out of your mind? That's coming from a bunch of pedos. But when I present the exact same statement from an expert, right? I mean, the experts, we got to trust the experts. because Andrea Long Chu is in the sex therapy circle. She's a subject matter expert. She actually won the Pulitzer Prize last year for literary criticism with the same kind of nonsense. When it's coming from an expert, suddenly we're listening to the same thing and people are according it legitimate critical thought. These are children, full stop. You do not sexualize children, full stop. Children have no fucking idea what their gender identity is or anything related to sex until an adult imparts them with it, or until they hit third grade and look it up in the World Book Encyclopedia, like some of us. They're kids, period, full stop. The statement that I made in the opener, I 100% stand by. Trans children are not a thing. Why? Because unless they have been exposed to those ideas by adults who should have known better, it's not something that they think about. I'll give you an example, a total overshare, right? No, you know what? No, I won't. Ha! Joey, goddammit. Salt in the sarcasm, buddy. Can't spell expert without spurt. Yeah, not in that circle. I did not know anything about sex until I hit third grade. Nothing, right? Did I participate in the playground exposure kind of thing? There was a little girl whose name was Shelly, and we showed each other our private parts. Most therapists will tell you now that in all likelihood, Shelly and I both were molested at some point and are repressing the memory because that's how that sort of behavior exhibits itself. And I wouldn't be surprised, but again, it's not something I remember, so it's not something that traumatizes me. I kissed other little first grade girls, right? Just a little, smooch on the lips thing, imitating behavior that we had seen in adults, right? I was a Protestant kid in a Catholic school, and on the jungle gyms, I was guilty in first grade of looking up and seeing what's under those skirts. It wasn't anything sexual. I didn't understand that this part was meant to go in that part. I didn't understand why I was curious about that. I was just repeating the smooch behavior. Just repeating behavior. I didn't know anything on a sexual level. And keep in mind, man, I'm coming up in my childhood in the 70s. So this is when stuff is pretty much everywhere. I had no idea. I heard other kids talking about it in third grade. Sex this, F word that. And being the intellect and curiosity that I was, I went and looked up the word sex in the World Book Encyclopedia. The description of intercourse, by the way, I can repeat almost verbatim in the 1976 World Book Encyclopedia. The man lies next to the woman and his penis is placed in her vagina. This is normally psychologically and physically pleasurable for both humans. That's the first thing I read about how to get it on. And look where I am now. Yeah, probably don't follow the example. The point is this. I had no idea it wasn't a sexual thing. When I was smooching these other little first grade girls, it wasn't because, yeah, man, I want to get them hot so I can do stuff, because I'm feeling like a man, and I gotta. It wasn't when I was under the jungle gym looking up the skirt. I wanted to know, like, oh, okay, so that's what the little girls wear under their stuff. Okay, wasn't anything sexual about it. I wasn't like, dude, I want to get up in that. No, it's in first grade. I didn't know I didn't know. Oddly enough, the first girl that I ever smooched on the mouth is now a semi-prominent Hollywood actress and has actually played the first lady and the president. And judging from her politics now and looking at her bio, she would hate what I have become. But that's just an interesting little sidebar story. First grade. First grade. I didn't know. I had no idea. It would not have occurred to me when little Shelly and I were showing each other our private parts, the back corner of the playground. It would not have occurred to me to try to get this thing to get stiff and put it in that other. It would not have even occurred to me. If she would have reached out and touched it, I probably would have gotten a little tickle in my pickle because that's purely physical. But it wouldn't have. Hey man, we got to take it to the next. It just wouldn't. This is not something that kids are aware of unless adults are imparting it to them. Now, let's replay that same scenario with the current push. Imagine Shelly and I at the back of that elementary school playground, showing each other our private parts and knowing what we were supposed to do with them and knowing unconventional ways to express ourselves with them and everything else. And this is just incidental contact. We're talking about getting these kids so twisted up in their own heads that they think that the only thing that is going to set them right in the world is to take chemicals that are going to render them sterile and ultimately to remove parts of themselves. Or at the very least, make it surgically impossible for those parts to develop in the first place. Just follow me. This is sick. Full stop. I'll fight you. Full stop. I will unceremoniously remove you from my life if you approve this for children. Full stop. Taibbi knocked it out of the park with that one. Because it has become so normalized again. And when you read the rest of the article, you will see how it dovetails with every other thing. All of the other socialist, anti-Western, intersectionality, socialist economics, systems of oppression, blah, 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 how it all dovetails and how he squeezes it all in together. It all dovetails with that. But again, we're talking about the opinion of a so-called expert giving the legitimacy of what amounts to what would have only a few years ago been rightfully and correctly disregarded as the spewing of a closet pedophile or an open pedophile in this case. Literally indistinguishable from something that NAMBLA would write. Slippery slope is not a fallacy. Okay? Lots of us have said from the very beginning, okay, well, if we go this far, it's just a matter of time before they're going to be saying that pedophilia is just another sexuality. Oh my God, that's absurd. Slippery slope fallacy, blah, blah, blah. Minor attracted persons. What was it I went over in the opener? What was the graphic that I showed you? Go look at the TED Talk. Go look at the TED Talk. Now, I'm not going to get out of context with it. The TED Talk does not approve of pedophilia. What it says is that we need to reach out to these people and embrace them and gently coax them into, because they are going to deal with this the rest of their life, and we are supposed to have compassion, which is going to lead me to the next bullet point: compassion versus compulsion. Embrace them. Go to hell. What about the basic love for your fellow man? Go to hell. What about the fact that the moral dictates of go to hell? Any questions? Slippery slope is not a fallacy. There is no end for these people. And now it's war. They seek no less than the complete usurpation and undermining of every value of Western civilization, every value that brought us to this point. Oh, yeah, we see where it is now. No, we see where it is now because we forgot what those values were. We abandoned them a good 20 to 40 years ago, and we have seen the inevitable result. And every step of the way, they've been telling us, well, it's just, no, man, it's just we haven't gone for no, dude, slippery slope fallacy. No, it's war. Line in the sand. Bart, don't you think that's a little judgmental? Mr. Christian guy, don't you think that's a little judgmental? Oh, we're going to deal with that in a little bit too. Regardless of how deeply they may hold their cherished belief that it is okay, no civilized society will tolerate that. Don't give me the cultural relativism as well. There's countries in Africa and, in Afghanistan, it's common for, out there herding the goats for a little boy to puff on an old man's pecker. Yeah, a lot of servicemen came back from Afghanistan talking the tales on that. Several servicemen were court-martialed because they saw it going on, and they did what a civilized human being would do when seeing a grown-ass man molesting a little boy. They beat the shit out of these goat pluggers, and they got court-martialed for it. What are we doing, sidebar question, even trying to deliver Jeffersonian democracy to savages? What are we doing? The minute they request our presence there, or even if they didn't request our presence there, I think colonialism was highly underrated. Oh my goodness, did he just? I want you to write that down as a quote when you're trying to dox me and have negative things to say about my ideology. I think colonialism was underrated, and I think the evidence for that, again, getting back to self-evident truths. Take a look at Rhodesia when the Europeans were running the show. Now take a look at Rhodesia post-revolution. That was about the most tasteful way I could put it. I say Rhodesia because we don't use the Z word in my house, okay? We don't. South Africa under control of the European powers. Economic powerhouse. They actually produced atomic weapons. So far their scientific and industrial base was in South Africa. Look at South Africa under control of the ANC. Bad colonialism. Bad colonialism. Those terrible Europeans. And if they thought it was bad, now that the Chinese are moving in, they will pray to have the Europeans back. Because the Europeans have that conscience that always gets the best of us. When you tell us we're being racist, we go, oh. and we start abandoning everything that we've built out of this misguided sense of guilt, conscience. The Chinese have no such compunctions. It's going to be brilliant 20 years from now when white liberals in the United States, awfuls, affluent white, you know, affluent white female liberals, when the awfuls are like, these Chinese are being so racist against those Africans, and expect, it's like, dude, over here we had MTV videos about how I ain't going to play Sun City. Over there, they're going to be like, the hell are you even talking about? We conquered it. We own it. Go to hell. As they should be. You can quote me on that too. Even FMG. FMG, funny mustache German. Remember what he said. If the will of the German people cannot sustain itself, then by natural order it is right and good that we are eliminated from the world. The same could be said for European and Western civilization. If we do not find our spine and our balls and reassert who we rightfully are and have proven ourselves to be at the top of the cultural food chain, we're going to vanish. We're going to vanish so thoroughly that the savages that we took it all from and gave it right back to are going to erase us from the history books, so no such thing will happen again. And with the power of the tiny hat mob behind them, quote me on that one too, they will see to it that European civilization is erased. It is the motive. It is going on, and it is deliberate. But that brings me back to compassion versus compulsion. Do you not have compassion? I have compassion. I absolutely have compassion. People are not as blessed as us. Civilizations and cultures are not as blessed as the West. Bloodlines and countries are not as blessed as white Europeans. Is that white supremacy talking? No. I want to be unequivocal on that. Supremacy is the second dumbest argument that anyone can make. Second dumbest argument anyone can make. I don't care who's spewing it. Supremacy is the second dumbest argument. The dumbest is equality. White Europeans are not as intelligent as North Asians and Ashkenazi Jews. Statistically and genetically, we're not as intelligent. Does culture feed into that? Absolutely it does. Could we usurp them in spite of the fact of not being as intelligent? Yes, we could, but don't say that we're equal. Do we have the posterior chain muscle development of certain equatorial peoples? Is that diplomatic? Yeah, I think it was. No, we do not. No, we do not. Those equatorial peoples have higher testosterone levels from birth and higher count of fast twitch muscle fibers. Jimmy the Greek got fired for that. Many an ESPN reporter has lost his career for that, but it remains a fact. Remains a fact. And Roman, I'm glad, you being part Asian, I'm glad that you were the one that brought that up. Higher average IQ, but almost no geniuses. Again, athletes, when it comes to professional competitive team sports, the NBA is dominated by who? Right. The NFL is dominated by who? Right. Strongman competitions are dominated by who? Oopsie. And we're back to white Europeans are Scandinavians and North Asians. You understand? Joey, I don't blame you, man. Knock one out of the park for me, dude. Last strokes for me. None of us are equal. We all have our strengths and our flaws. But I have compassion. I do have compassion. I want to bring the gifts of the West. I want to bring the gifts of European culture to anyone who can accept it. I want to embrace the gifts that other cultures have. I want trade. I want interaction. I want intellectual exchanges with everyone. I have compassion. These places, like, for instance, ANC controlled South Africa now, they become shitholes. Haiti. Roman, you brought that up earlier, and I'm glad you touched on it. What happened in Haiti? Without colonialism, we wouldn't. Okay, let me see. Colonialism. Yeah, all right. Haiti, the French. It was a French colony, right? They decided they didn't like the way things were being run, so they raped and butchered all of the French slave masters, booted them off the island, and said, "We're going to run it ourselves." And ever since then, what year was that? Well, guys, Google it real quick. What year was the Haitian slave rebellion? What year? What year? Yes, it was. It was actual genocide against white people. What year was it? So, how many years have they had to correct the situation? How many years have they had to correct the situation? You can Google the date. They've had that many years to correct the situation, and yet it remains such a shithole. Remember when a certain person referred to it as a shithole? Caught all kinds of flack for it, but it remains a shithole. To this day, remains a shithole. Butchery, savagery, the lowest thing anyone could expect. Here's the difference between compassion versus compulsion. Thank you, Roman. 1804. They've had over 200 years. Look what white Europeans were able to build on a single continent in 200 years. Haiti, look at their size landmass, and what have they been able to do in 200 years? Tell me again how we're equal. You can literally see the difference because there are two republics on that island. A lot of you guys don't know that. Half of the island is Haiti, the other half is the Dominican Republic. You can spot the border from space. Not even making that up. Why? Because the left half of the island that is controlled by the Haitians has been 100% deforested. All the natural resources have been purged. Look, it's the same freaking island. Thank you. Thank you. Denuded their half of the island, flew over both nations of the plane. And you know, completely erased it. I have compassion. What I don't have and what I will not abide is compulsion. I have compassion for people who are suffering in festering third world shit sores who want to come here for a better life. I have compassion for them, but I owe them nothing. Let me say that again. I owe them nothing. It is that sense of guilt that they play against us all the time. Don't you feel anything for these people? I certainly do. I certainly do. You know who else I feel for? American citizens. You know who else I feel for? American citizens getting raped and murdered by these people that we open the door for out of compassion. You know who else I feel compassion for? I feel compassion for people who have had a bad run of luck here in the United States that are down on it and could use the money that we're sending to Haiti or Ukraine or any of these other places. All the while, we're $3 trillion in debt. Compassion, I have. Compulsion, you lost me. We owe them nothing. Nothing. That's not very Christian of you, is it? It's not very Christian. You're being judgmental, dude. You're being judgmental. We're still going to deal with that. It's going to be the last bullet point that we deal with. Compassion versus compulsion. And we covered Taibbi knocking it out of the park. But this is Endgame. For those who seek the end of the West, this is all part of that Endgame. They are hitting us with that compulsion. because they're playing on our compassion. You see how this works? At no point will you hear any force in the propaganda ministry or any representative of the regime talk about the negative aspects of illegal immigration. They will minimize, if not outright deny, the rate of violent crime. They will minimize, if not outright deny, the terror threat. They will not discuss the number of known terrorists who have been captured, let alone the ones who have gotten away. They will not acknowledge the fentanyl epidemic. They will not acknowledge the fact that we are legitimately at war now. Remember what we went over last week? The Chinese sold those pill presses to the cartels at cost. Why? Fifth generation warfare. And we have people inside the United States who are permitting it. Not only are they allowing cultures inferior to the West to import the worst of their dregs by the millions. And you're right, Roman, that's it. Some cultures suck. Sorry. What are those cultures down there known for? Child sex abuse. Common as dirt. We are seeing resurgences of tropical diseases that have been long eradicated in the United States, and they have the audacity to blame it on white Americans who are anti-vaxxers. Right, that must be it, because white Americans carry Chagas and leprosy. Yes, it's all those American anti-vaxxers that are to blame for that. No, it is the millions of people pouring across the southern border who are unvetted, untreated, unvaccinated, and carrying infection. They're all contagion vectors, every single one of them, without exception. It's amazing how white liberals will never let us forget about the smallpox blankets that we gave to the Native Americans. And yet, because their immune systems weren't equipped to deal with smallpox. Our immune systems are not equipped to deal with Chagas, or for that matter, leprosy, or any of the slew of tropical infections that are pouring across the southern border right now. It is the same exact thing in reverse, and the same white liberals are cheering it on. They are driven purely by emotion. And this is the ones that aren't driven by malice, okay? Because the majority of mainstream liberals, they really, really are coming from a genuine, honest place. They really think that they are doing the right thing morally, that all of these people pouring across are, they're just downtrodden migrants, and they're just like us, really, and they just want a better life for their families. I mean, anyone can understand that, right? And if that were the case, who could blame them for feeling that way? What kind of scumbag would you have to be to reject sort of something like that if that were the case? I love you, Bill. Know that. Know that in your heart. You would have to be a special kind of monster to turn those people away, knowing that, if that were the case. That isn't the case. The regime is able to institute compulsion because they are playing on the masses' compassion. And even that is failing. The majority of the American public now has seen through it. I feel very, very bad for you completely emotion-driven creatures, most of whom are women and very, very effeminate men who make their decisions based on what feels right to them and cannot look at empirical evidence objectively. I feel bad for those people. They all watch MSNBC. They all watch MSNBC and think that Maddow guy is an intellectual powerhouse. I joke, but sadly, these people are allowed to vote and reproduce without even a permit. It's pretty terrifying. Parsing my words here. The majority of the American public has seen through it. Even most Democrats have seen through it. The rank and file liberal is motivated by emotion. They are motivated. They're coming out of a genuine place. The regime is pushing compulsion by feeding on their compassion. Now that the compassion is run out, it's just come down to raw compulsion. We will keep the border open, and if you try to do it, if you try to secure your own border, we will prevent you from doing so. This is not incompetence. This is malice. They know exactly what they're doing. If the border is open, that fentanyl is allowed to be trafficked. That undermines the United States. These cultures inferior to the West are going to be able to import the horrible values of those cultures by the millions. That is going to usurp and undermine the last bastion of the West. Europe is finally pushing back because it finally got bad enough in Europe that they had to say, okay, fine. You know, you're already flooding our streets. You're kicking us out of our homes, but now you're telling us we can't grow our own damn food. Maybe that's what it'll take here in the States. It's not like we aren't well on our way. Bill Gates buying up all the farmland, regime putting all these environmental restrictions into place. I mean, these aren't things that are subject for debate anymore, which is why I don't talk to any of these people that spew this nonsense. There's literally nothing to talk about. If you're still blind at this point, you're beyond reaching. What I speak to are the people that are remaining silent, and there are a lot of them. I can't tell you how many. Right, Cloward Piven. Thank you. Cloward Piven. Conservatives know about Cloward Piven. Liberals don't. They don't. And if you explained it to them, they call it a right-wing conspiracy theory. I digress. I can't tell you how many personal messages that I get. Man, I had no idea. Or, man, I'm so glad you're speaking out about this stuff. So glad you're speaking out about this stuff. I want to say something that I'm afraid. Now, the first ones, I love getting those. That I'm turning people on to something that they wouldn't have been aware of before. I like getting those. I'm conflicted on the second. Man, I'm so glad you're out there speaking out, man. I want to, man, but you've got what? You've got what? What do you have to lose? I could lose my job, find another job. What's going to be better? You losing a job now and finding another way to feed your family and working for people who actually have their eyes open and give a damn about you? Or letting the whole thing collapse underneath you and then having your kid tugging at your pants leg going, Daddy, why does my tummy hurt? And you got to tell her because we haven't eaten in 4 days. Which is better, man? Nut up. Find your spine. Let your balls drop. I appreciate the compliment that you're giving me or attempting to give me. I really do. And it does feel good because it reminds me that I'm not just wasting air every Sunday. And every time I get in, click and post something, it's a reminder, and that's valuable. But I'm conflicted because at the same time, it's infuriating. Why aren't you, if you know, why aren't you speaking? Compulsion versus compassion. They are able to push the compulsion because they're feeding off the compassion. Now the compassion has evaporated. Look what is going on in blue cities right now. We're sanctuary cities. No hate, no fear. Refugees are welcome here. Until we gave it to them. And now they're buckling. And the regime tried to blame Texas. Oh, this is Abbott's fault. You know, Abbott's the one sending them to you. Well, Abbott might be the one sending them to you. DeSantis might be the one sending them to you. You guys are the ones that said you wanted them. Compassion evaporates when compulsion confronts you with the consequences of compassion. Let me say that again. Your compassion evaporates when compulsion confronts you with consequences. This moral high ground that you hold yourself on only lasts as long as you're able to hold it from a distance. It's real easy to sit, for instance, it's real easy for white liberals to sit in gated communities and talk about what a wonderful thing diversity is for the inner city. Because they'll never see the crime rate. They'll never be mugged. They'll never be raped. They'll never have someone they know stabbed or killed or raped. They don't have to live with it. If all of a sudden the very regime that they supported forces them to open the gates to their little suburban paradise and embrace these people, now the compassion evaporates. Sanctuary cities. No hate, no fear. Refugees are welcome here. Okay, take all you want. We got plenty. Oh, wait. What do you mean my kid can't go to school today because it's got to house migrants? What are you talking about? Oh, funny. The difference between emotion-driven behavior and logic-driven behavior. And there is no logic in emotion-driven behavior. There is no logic on the left. There are no facts to defend their cases. We are watching it unravel in real time, absolutely, objectively, demonstrably, and irrefutably. They got me so mad I used up all my 3 college words in one sentence. I'm very upset. Compulsion versus compassion. Genuine compassion is helping out your damn neighbors. Genuine compassion is going to your local church when they're having a fund drive for families who are up against it in the Biden economy. Genuine compassion is going to Bishop's Storehouse, even if you're not a Mormon. That lighting the candle versus, pissing into the darkness, man. When I first got up here, and I wasn't even walking with Christ then. And even now I am walking with Christ. There are people who have problems with the Mormon ideology. I don't care. That's not the point. The point is compassion is going to Bishop's Storehouse and helping them distribute the food to families who are genuinely needy and not just sitting back, government ain't gave me enough food. I got to experience this. I got to do it. I got to witness the results of it with my own 2 eyes and put that work in with my own 2 hands. That is what compassion is. Not posting on Facebook about how much you love third world filth being dumped into somebody else's neighborhood. Are you tracking? That's what compassion is. Compassion is knowing the guy that lives 2 doors down has PTSD and going by and just bringing him some food and just checking, hey, man, I ain't seen you in a minute. You ain't been out mowing the yard past couple of weekends. I just want to see how you're doing. Hey, man, if you ever get up against it, dude, I'm just 2 doors down. Just knock. That's compassion. And God knows we need more of that. What are you doing in your community right now? Even for those of you that don't walk in the faith, what have you done in your community? Have you talked to your local church? There are people hurting in your zip code. What have you done to better it, man? What have you done? Spare me the moral high ground of all this chest thumping. My heart is so pure, man. My motivations, I feel all the right ways that Maddow guy told me to feel about, loving your fellow man. Which leads me to the final bullet point. All this judgment, Bart, all this judgment. You're not walking it like a real Christian. Nothing I love more than hearing that complaint from people who aren't walking it. And again, I can't be mad because I did it myself. Judgment. What's another word for judgment? Discernment. Discretion. Judgment can mean a lot of things. But a whole lot of people, thank you. Genuine compassion is James 1:27. Pure and undefiled religion before the Lord is visiting orphans and widows of their distress and staying unspotted from the world. You are correct. Thank you, sir. A lot of people be real quick. And by the way, that is my brother in Christ. I'm not going to out your real name, buddy. I'm not gonna put you on Front Street like that. But it was good talking with you last night on the phone, brother. You know that. Go help. Don't brag on social media about all the right ways that you feel. Get your ass out of the house and show me something, or better yet, don't show me something about what you were doing for good in the world in absolute silence. Y'all didn't know about that stuff I did for LDS. I'm not bringing it up to puff my own pecker. I'm bringing it up to illustrate what I'm trying to say. Y'all didn't even know that. The only time I mention it is when people start slagging on Mormons. It's generally the only time I'll even bring it up. And you know what? The magic underwear thing and some of the doctrine, like, I get it. Like, I get all the complaints. Some of the doctrine, I get it. But damn it, they are good people. They are good people. And in my experience, without exception, walk it like they talk it. I tell you what, I will take any one Mormon walking it with that questionable doctrine and behaving in a way that is actually improving the lives of his fellow man than any 10 of these lukewarm so-called Christians buying prosperity gospel and doing the hippie Jesus thing. Hippie Jesus is trans, bro. Hippie Jesus is tolerant. Hippie Jesus just looks and he loves everybody, man. There you are judging again, right? There you are judging again. Discernment is to see, judgment is to convict. Thank you. But judgment means a lot of things. Judgment in the judicial sense, judgment in the emotional sense, exercising one's judgment, exercising one's discretion. Judgment, observation can be a part of judgment. The ones that, the people that push the hippie Jesus, they're really big on that. Judge not, judge not, you're being judgy. When I'm out calling evil to its face, they love falling back on that. I'm judge not lest ye be judged. Okay. Let's do a little walk, shall we? Because today I brought the receipts. And by the way, there are two people that I follow on my personal page on Facebook. One guy, oddly enough, like the tattoos that I have on the back of my triceps, Dave's Volt is his log-on name, and the other guy is Ben Gregory. And thank you, the spiritual equivalent of carbon credits. Thank you. Some magic congos with them when they knocked out, right? That's how the Bible says to do it. Don't do it for recognition. Amen and amen. A lot of my brothers in Christ, man. We talked about lukewarm also. Revelation 3:16. You are neither hot nor cold, so I spew you out of my mouth. It's better to pick a side of the fence than on the fence. Amen, brother. But let's get down to judgment for a minute, because I love the hippie Jesus folks. I love them. You judge not, lest ye be judged. It's even better when they're not even believers. My birth mother, who I cut loose, by the way, who was full of judgment for me and my ideology and the way that I live my life, despite having been absent from it for 51 years. Not that I'm bitter, but I am. But I forgive her. Just don't want anything to do with her anymore. Cut her loose. Because for all of those judgments about my ideology, the minute you step up and call evil, evil, judge not. You're not being a Christian. Let's get into it, shall we? Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7. Judge not that ye be not judged, verse 2. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. And with what measure ye meet, it shall be measured to you again. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thy own eye? I'm walking around with a log pointing out of my head, and I'm going to point out your splinter. I think we can all agree on that. Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the mote from thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thy own eye. Thou hypocrite. Verse 5, thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thy own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote of thy brother's eye. Give not that which is holy unto the dog. You know what? I'm going to come back to 6 in a minute. Verse 5, thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thy own eye. What he is saying here is that you are going to be judged in equal measure with the judgment that you mete out. And so many people are so overwhelmed with all the things they need to fix about themselves. They love pointing out the splinters, somebody else's eye, but they got a log poking out of their head. You know what? Some people, that log has become so obstructive to their own vision that they can't even see the splinter in somebody else's eye. It's basically saying, how are you going to judge? You can't even see. There's a log in your eye, moron. Get that out of your head and then help your neighbor and let him know he's got that splinter and help him pick it out. Verse 5, thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam in thy own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote of thy brother's eye. Let's go back to verse 2 for a minute. For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged, and with what measure ye mete, it shall be measured to you again. That isn't saying don't judge no matter what they're doing. It's saying don't judge if you're not in a position. You understand that? I'm going to bring some receipts on some more because already I can see some of y'all bristling. Some of you hippie Jesus maggots are already bristling. I'm going to bring it home. Y'all just stay with me. Stay tracking, all right? Verse 6, give not that which is holy unto the dogs, neither cast ye your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn again and rend you. In other words, why are you going to bring it to these people who are drowning in their own wretchedness? When you are drowning in your own wretchedness, you can't even see to point it out to them. And you have the wisdom and you cast this before them and you tell them how to live your life, but they're just going to trample those pearls under their feet, turn right back around and judge you. And how are they going to judge you? With what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. And what measure ye mete shall be measured to you again. Who are you? Who are you? So the emphasis is on to be an example and to live it rather than speak it, to deal with your own garbage, clean up your own backyard before you go knocking on your neighbor's door. But once you got that backyard cleaned up, don't let him keep that landfill in his side passage in his back alley. You go knock on that neighbor's door. This hippie Jesus stuff, just live and let live, bro. I mean, I know they're like diddling kids and stuff, but man, judge not. Remember what I've said to you before. Turn the other cheek. Oh, but the guy that bundled up the reeds and beat the stuffers out of the moneylenders in the temple, chased them out, same guy. Live it by example. Judge not, lest ye be judged. Okay. How about the Gospel of John, chapter 7, verse 24? Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. I'm saying don't call out evil when it's evil. Don't call out something that appears evil, but judge righteous judgment. And we'll kick it on. Let's read the full chapter. We go down to 724. If a man on the Sabbath day receives circumcision that the law of Moses should not be broken, are ye angry at me? Because I have made a man every whit whole on the Sabbath day? Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. It said some of them to Jerusalem, is not this he whom they seek to kill? Howbeit we know this man whence he is, but when Christ cometh, no man knoweth whence he is. Judge him by the appearances, and then you got the righteous right in your face and you're blind to it. Judge not. And they sought to take him. Book of John. sought to take him, but no man laid hands on him because his hour was not yet come. And how many of people believed on him? When Christ cometh, he will do more miracles than these with this man. And the Pharisees heard that the people murmured such things concerning him. And the Pharisees and the chief priests sent officers to take him. Ye shall seek me and shall not find me. Where I am, where I am, there ye cannot come. Don't judge. Don't judge. 1 Corinthians chapter 2. For he that is spiritual judges all things, yet he himself is judged of no man. For who hath known the mind of the Lord that he may instruct him? But we have the mind of Christ. That is outright telling you the criteria for judgment, is it not? And do you see anything in there that would indicate to you that, hey, live and let live is going to be the law of the land? Yeah, but who are you to decide what is evil? I think there's some things we can all pretty much agree on. You want to have the discussion about the subtle nuances of whether, whether Mormon doctrine or certain Jewish law is running afoul of the scriptures. We can have that discussion, but we're talking about cutting the cocks off of children. I don't think there's a whole lot of room for nuance there, and I'll be damned if I'll sit there and let you tell me not to judge it. Back to the book of John, chapter 2. Little children, it is the last time, as ye have heard that Antichrist shall come. Even now there are many Antichrists, whereby we know that it is the last time. Oh, yeah, Wes is up against it. Wonder why? Taking a look at that. My secular friends, you can tune out now. It's cool. They went out from us, but they were not of us. For if they had been of us, there would no doubt have continued with us. But they went out, but they might be made manifest that they were not all of us. But ye have an unction from the Holy One, and ye know all things. Does that sound like he's telling us not to pass judgment? Does that sound like we're being told not to exercise our judgment in judgment, to exercise our discretion, our observation, our knowledge in observing what is going on and being able to call evil evil? Does that sound to you like hippie Jesus? Maybe I'm misreading. Matthew 7, beware of false prophets which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Does that sound not judgmental to you? Does that sound like he might be encouraging people to exercise their judgment, their discretion in judging the actions or the motivations of another? Wolves in sheep's clothing? And these are some cliched ass verses I'm throwing at you, by the way. We ain't even doing a deep dive. You want to know why? Because I'm not far along on the path to do a deep dive. This is my superficial, half-ass level of understanding from being raised in it and just getting back to it. And yet I can get my head around this. So don't act like it's complicated. Paul, his letter to the church of Corinth. 1 Corinthians, first letter to the church of Corinth. Chapter 6, dare any of you, having a matter against another, go to law before the unjust and not before the saints? Do ye not know that the saints shall judge the world? And if the world shall be judged by you, are ye unworthy to judge the smallest matters? In other words, when the kingdom comes, they will be the ones making the calls and the judgments. And here you are, hanging back like, well, I'm not fit to judge such a thing because I'm just a man. You can call evil evil when you see it. That's something pretty much intrinsic. And the only way we lose it is if we voluntarily allow ourselves to get twisted up in hashtag intellectual gymnastics, or if we voluntarily just avoid discretion because it's easier. It's easier to follow hippie Jesus. Judge not, bro. I mean, I understand he's selling fentanyl by the high school, but I don't want to be judgmental. You notice, and this is going to disturb some of y'all, I'm actually more pushing for righteous men to act in righteous ways than I would ever express for any power to be exercised by the state. Even if the state were to mask itself as an agent of Carpenter, even if we were being led by men who were men of faith or men of God, men who were walking in the truth of the light, and those people were in the highest seats of government, I would still be reluctant, if not absolutist, in not giving power to that state. Because it's not the theology and it's not the philosophy that would corrupt it. It is the institution itself. So what hope has an institution which is already inherently corrupted, that is being run by men who have embraced darkness, who have literally sold their souls, or metaphorically sold their souls, for you guys who are of a secular nature? I'm not ruling you guys out. But this last one, Ephesians, letter of Paul to the church at Ephesus, and it's one of my favorites, because, dude, you want something that'll get you charged up to go fight the good fight, man. Just sit down. Open your Bibles to the book of Ephesians and just start. Something we did. I was in a Baptist school when I was in 4th grade, Tabernacle Baptist School. And I resented it. I hated every bit of it because it felt authoritarian to me and everything. And I did not realize, because I was a rebellious mind, and I didn't realize the gifts that I was being given until I jumped back into public school a year later and saw how far advanced I was over my peers academically. There were a lot of bad elements to what they did, but it was a gift. And we had something that we did that were called sword drills. We had to memorize every single book of the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth, Esther. We had to have them memorized, and we did what we called sword drills, right? And this is how we changed the seating order in the classrooms. We'd walk around and they'd say, like, they call out a verse, and everybody's got their Bibles because we carried our Bibles every day, and they call out a verse, Ephesians 5:11. Right? And immediately, and whoever got there first puts their hand up, and they read it. And if they had the right verse, you get to either take that seat there or advance to the next one if you wanted to be further away. It was sword drills. That's what they call it. Why? Because the sword is the word, right? The word is the sword, and the sword is the word. That was your weapon in spiritual warfare. I think back a lot on that now, and I'm seeing it in a much different light. We'll get into that on another day. Ephesians, letter to Paul, Church of Ephesus. And let's talk about Paul for a minute. Saul of Tarsus on the road to Damascus. This is a man that literally crucified Christians. This is a man that literally murdered Christians. I saw the coolest meme the other day, and I should have pulled it up. I'll be able to put it on the scene for you. That when Paul arrived in heaven, he was cheered by the souls of every Christian that he had martyred. Dude, that hit me so freaking hard. You could have knocked me over with it. You could have knocked me over with a damn feather. I read that meme, and you could have heard a mouse pissing on a cotton ball, man. It took the words right out of me. I had nothing for that. Just think about the power of that. This man who had murdered, tortured followers of Christ, that had that conversion and became Christ's brightest apostle. And you think he can't do that? You think he can't find a purpose for you? Carpenter Kid found a purpose for my scrub ass. After all the depravity, has given me a calling, and you think he's got nothing for you? Guess again, Sparky. Ephesians 5, verse 11. And have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. Reprove them. Let's dig out the thesaurus on that. What would be a synonym for reprove? Judge. Have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. For it is a shame even to speak of those things which are done of them in secret. Horrible stuff they're doing. But all things that are reproved are made manifest by the light, for whatsoever doth make manifest is light. In other words, take these things that are being done in darkness. It is a shame to speak of them, but when you reprove these actions, you are manifesting the light. You are exposing it. You are pulling it out of the darkness and showing it to the world. When you call out evil for being evil, for you secular guys, let's go back to the Emperor's New Clothes fable for a minute. You guys remember that story? All the finery, but there was nothing. There was nothing. There was no substance. But everyone was afraid. Everyone was afraid. Those are the people who are sitting in silence right now. Or the ones who are sending me letters going, dude, I'm glad you're speaking out, but I can't. The ones who are sitting in silence right now, that's the crowd. They're waiting for the parade. Emperor's coming out butt naked. But they're all afraid to say something. They've got to say, they've got to all join in the delusion together. What beautiful robes and jeweled finery the emperor is draped in. It is wonderful in the benevolence of the emperor. And all it took was the courage of one little 6-year-old kid to step out of the crowd and point and go, dude, I can see your dick. Is that an insensitive thing? Yes, it is. All right. Dude, you're naked. One kid stepped out of the crowd and said, dude, you're naked. When people say that you're acting like a child, when people say that you're acting immature, that's the kind of child you need to be acting like, especially in this day and age. Be that 6-year-old. Be that 6-year-old that steps out of the crowd and go, dude, Emperor's naked. Because all of those people who are sitting in silence in the background, maybe that's all they need. You remember the rule about the third dancer? You guys know about that? Again, it's not always about description. Sometimes it's about basic psychology. Sometimes it's about basic history. In basic psychology, one guy gets out and dances and everybody's like, this guy's looking like an idiot. I'm scared to look like an idiot. And the second guy gets out and dances, people kind of rethink it. It's like, well, okay, now it's 2 idiots. But when the third guy jumps in, everybody feels free because now it's a group. They have used that against us. And when I say us, I don't mean just followers of Christ. I mean people who are trying to walk in righteousness, people who are nationalists, people who are advocates of the West. They have used that fear against us for decades. I don't want to speak out. I don't want to be a racist. I don't want to be a bigot. I don't want to be a sexist. I don't want to be a transphobe. Be that third man that jumps out and starts dancing. Be that 6-year-old kid that steps out of the crowd and points and says, hey, Emperor's naked. Be that man. Because just like the struggle of the West has a place for everybody, not just hunters and killers and shooters and fighters. Fight for the soul of the West is intrinsically tied to the fight for the soul of the church and the faith. You secular people might not believe that, but this is my show, so this is the point that I'll make and take it or leave it. The struggle for the soul of the West is intrinsically tied to the struggle of the soul of the faith. One will not hold without the other, and we have seen that demonstrably over the past 40 years, the past 10 years especially. One will not hold without the other. So just like the West can use you in that physical fight, if you can't shoot, you can load. If you can't load magazines, you can bring ammo, you can distribute water, you can handle the communications. That physical struggle for the West can use you, but the struggle for the faith can use you too. Because not everybody will take the time to put together a 2-hour rant and rave session every Sunday like my fat crippled ass. But everybody has conversations. Do you know how the Soviet Union collapsed? The Soviet Union didn't collapse. There's a lot of factors the Soviet Union collapsing, but here's how it really collapsed: one conversation at a time. They might have been afraid to speak out publicly for fear of going to the gulag or being killed, but they talked to another person on the subway, or they talked to a neighbor that they trusted. Sometimes that'd even get them killed, but they felt compelled. That is how we win, one conversation at a time. Something that I found out when I was running railroad crews, and I talked to these people. And you know what? You had some liberal guys that work for the railroad, and they'd put up a good argument, but they'd also accept a good argument. Read about it, Substack, being able to carry that argument. If you can't defend a position, you have no right to hold it. But I digress. One conversation at a time, man. And what you find out when you talk to ordinary people, and it happened to me when I was running railroad crews, and it happens to me when I'm on the job site, like I'm on the bus going in and out, on the smelter gig or the refinery, whatever, or just stand outside the gate, standing at the gate waiting to clock in or clock out, and you just start up a conversation. You find out that you're not the only one. You're not the only one out there dancing. A lot of other people feel that way. One conversation at a time is how we win these things. One conversation at a time is how we save the West. One conversation at a time is how we deliver the faith. Do you not see the change in the climate of consciousness that is going on? Russell Brand, dude. That insufferable twat waffle, pretty sumbitch. He's coming to Christ. A whole lot of people that you never would have expected. You're looking at one right now. You get there when you get there, if you get there. I'm going to sit here and proselytize to you, but I'm saying if the reason you're avoiding it is because you think you don't fit into that divine plan, guess again. He took a murderer and turned him into his brightest apostle. He took a depraved, crippled sumbitch and has him out here delivering the word to you every Sunday. It's brought a lot of peace to my life is what I'm saying, and I think it'll work for you too. But even if not, if you don't think the faith needs you, know that the West needs you. And if you are living under the comforting umbrella of everything that the West has brought to you, it's the least you can do. Just do it. We don't talk in opposition, we fight. Exactly. Remember the boxes, right? I still believe of all those boxes, cartridge box, God forbid we ever get to it. Ballot box, we're about to find out. Jury box, depends on where you are. I'm still a firm believer in the soapbox. So I stand up on one every damn Sunday and I bring it to you the best that I can. And I hope that it delivers something to you. I hope that it gets your wheels turning. I hope that it touches you here as well as here. It's real easy to get angry. I do it all the time. It's a lot harder to process that anger and remain confident in what's coming. And the only way I can do that, you're a different person than I am. I can't speak for you, but the only way that I'm able to do it now is realize my small part in a divine plan. Like I've said before, for the boss man and the carpenter kid, I'm ready to lay down that burden, but I got to be ready to pick up that cross. All the stuff that I put on myself, all these bags of bricks that I'm carrying around for all these scrubs that I have put on myself, that I had put to me, these bags of bricks that I've been carrying, I'm ready to lay it down. I'm ready to lay down those bricks because this back is built for strong loads, man. And if I'm going to be carrying a strong load, let it be that cross, whatever that is. If that means going out gloriously, like we talked about earlier in a hail of gunfire, beautiful. If that means being a good martyr and speaking Christ being the last word that crosses my lips before they cut my throat, let it be that. If living to a ripe old age and dying comfortably in my own bed, having reached dozens of you and brought some of his children home, let it be that. I don't know, but whatever it is, thy will, not mine, be done. Thy will, not mine, be done. I'm going to close with a prayer here, folks. Lord God, I thank you I give you all the glory and the praise, not for just redemption and forgiveness, but I thank you for putting the people in my path, for exercising that plan and helping me to come home. I thank you for the gifts of being able to reach people, to touch them in some small way, and I hope that I can touch their hearts and their minds. If I can bring them home to you, Lord, let them be brought home. If they're out there suffering, they're wondering if they've got a place, give them that spark to let them know that they will have a place in that divine plan, Lord, that they do have a place in that divine plan. And some of them are already living it and don't even realize it. I did that for years. Did that for years. But no matter what, people that seek what is truly right and truly good in this world, people that seek to walk in the light, people that seek to walk in the truth, people that seek the truth, give them the strength, Lord. Give them the discernment, the judgment, if you will, to determine good from evil, right from wrong, to walk in your plan. Give them comfort in their time of need. Help them to find the strength. You don't have to give them the strength. Help them to find the strength that they already hold within themselves to carry that burden, the sense to lay down that bag of bricks, the strength to pick up that cross, and the wisdom and courage to carry it forward and speak the word and walk in light and truth. I pray these things in the name of the risen Christ whom I ever serve. Amen and amen. I love y'all, man. That's all I got. I love y'all. I appreciate you being here. We're going to go out like we always do with a little Neil Fallon and Clutch. The name of the song is Fortunate Son. You know what? I did ask Red Desert. I did send them an email. I haven't asked Clutch. And knowing what I know about Neil Fallon's politics, I don't know if he'd like it that much. Sooner or later, I might get banned. So if you guys are looking to dox me, that'd be a way. But I've got like 3 backup outro songs, so it really... I would love to be able to thank Neil Fallon directly, but I can't claim that kind of credit. Although I will say, man, if you guys have ever seen Clutch perform live, if I have described this, and I think if Norman is still here, he will say this. He will agree that watching Neil Fallon perform with Clutch is kind of like watching a tent revival preacher front a rock band. Really is, man. So anyway, right? Hey, man, I could ask him, but in the meantime, we're going to go out with a little bit of that, and I know you're going to enjoy this. We're going to play it. Fortunate Son from Clutch. It's going to be our outro music, as always. I don't think there's been a better cover of this song, man. I think this Clutch cover, Fortunate Son, has got to be the best one going. Guys, I'm going to pass that digital collection plate around like I always do. You know this is primarily a labor of love, but if you want to throw me some coin, I certainly won't turn against it. I'm on Cash App. I'm on PayPal. I'm on Facebook page, Zelle, Venmo, all that good stuff, and I'm down for whatever. But hey, I also recognize that we are living in a Biden economy reluctantly for at least another several months. So that being the case, I get it. And a lot of you guys can't kick down. I always appreciate the guys that do. And guys, you know who you are. My regulars out there, man, I love y'all so much, brother. I love you so much for all the help that you give me. Anyway, guys, I am going to pass that collection plate around. If you can't kick down, here's what you can do for me. You guys can post it on your own social media. If you like what I got going here, you can repost it. Let them know, man. Just a crane operator with some opinions, man. Fat, crippled, toothless sumbitch gets on rants and raves for a couple hours every Sunday. He's a like-minded, a kindred spirit, and you probably dig it. You know, tell them about the program. Bring them out here. But here's what you can do. Not just for me, but for yourselves. Here's something you can do for me. As my brother Mike Stone says, live the 3, baby. What's the 3? The 3 prime directives. You guys already know. Signal over noise. The signal-to-noise ratio in everyday discourse is all screwed up to try to bury you with the noise. You have got to be that signal that punches through the noise and reaches hearts and minds and souls. You have got to be that light in the darkness. They will try to bury you in the darkness, demoralize you, dehumanize you, emasculate you, have you thinking there's nothing left in the world but darkness. You have got to be the light that pierces that darkness, which brings me to number 3, the prime directive, the iron rule. You have got to be strength in a world full of weaknesses. Strength can mean a lot of things, man. It can mean here, sometimes even here. But without that strength, You won't be able to punch that signal through the noise. Without that strength, you will not have the guts and the tenacity to punch that light and continue to carry that light through the darkness. So strength above everything. Strength of mind, strength of body, strength of soul, strength of spirit. I ask that you guys reinforce everybody else's strength, man. Take care of yourselves and each other. For all my guys that are going to Fear Inoculum this week, God bless you all, man. I love y'all. God be with you all. Thank you for being here. I love y'all, man. Thank you so much for everything. God bless you all. Thank you. I love y'all, man. Take good care of yourselves. I'm going to miss you right back, Clem. Love you right back. Love you too, brother. God bless y'all. See you next Sunday. Peace. Oh, man. I love it. I love it.